Marine, listen up, because this deep dive, well, this one goes right to the core of how the Marine Corps operates.
Absolutely. And we're talking about MCDP 10, the Marine Corps Doctrinal Foundation.
Yeah, their playbook, their Bible, this is the document that really defines how they think about warfighting.
That's right. It provides that common language, that shared understanding that's so critical for any military organization.
So everyone's on the same page from the boots on the ground all the way up to the top brass.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important for every Marine to at least have a grasp of the basics of MCDP 10.
You know what else I find interesting about this is that, you know, you would think doctrine would be all about, tactics and specific procedures.
Right.
But MCDT 10 seems to go a level deeper. It's almost like a philosophy of warfighting.
It is. And that's what makes it so powerful. It's not just about what to do, but it's about how to think about warfighting, how to approach those complex problems.
And that's where I think the warfighting functions come in.
Right.
So MCDP 10 breaks down all military activities into 7 key functions.
7 essential ingredients in that recipe for victory.
Okay, I like that analogy. So break it down for me. What are these warfighting functions and why are they so important?
Right. So the 7 functions are command and control maneuver fires, intelligence logistics, force protection, and information.
Okay, 7 functions, got it.
And these functions encompass every activity that takes place on the battlefield.
So everything from, strategic planning to actually pulling the trigger.
That's right. Everything from, making decisions to moving troops to supplying them to gathering intelligence, everything.
Okay, so 7 functions all working together. That sounds incredibly complex.
It is, but here's the key. They're not isolated elements.
Right.
MCDP 10 really stresses the importance of integration.
Integration meaning?
Meaning all these functions have to work together seamlessly to achieve the mission.
Okay, so it's like a well-oiled machine with each function representing a gear or a component or something like that.
That's a great analogy.
So it's not just about knowing your own job. You have to know how your role fits into the bigger picture.
Exactly. Whether you're a rifleman providing covering fire or a mechanic keeping those vehicles running.
Or the cook, keeping everybody fed.
Exactly. Understanding how these functions interact makes you a more effective Marine, and that's really the point of all of this.
Okay, that's starting to make sense. Now let's dive into each of these functions, starting with command and control.
Right, command and control.
So what makes this function so crucial on the battlefield?
Well, it's really the brain of any military operation. It's about leadership, clear communication, and the commander's ability to make decisions, issue orders, and coordinate the actions of their Marines.
So more than just barking orders.
Oh, absolutely. MCDP 10 emphasizes that effective command and control is a dynamic, interactive process.
Dynamic.
It's not just top-down orders. It's about clear communication, constant feedback, and the commander's ability to adapt their plans based on what's happening on the ground.
So it's like a quarterback reading the defense and calling an audible at the line of scrimmage.
That's a great analogy, and it highlights how critical flexibility and responsiveness are in the chaos of battle.
Right, because things rarely go according to plan.
Rarely.
Especially in combat.
Exactly. You got to be able to adjust on the fly.
Okay, that's command and control.
Right.
What about maneuver?
Right, maneuver.
That seems pretty straightforward, moving troops around the battlefield.
Right.
But I suspect there's more to it than that.
There's definitely more to it than meets the eye.
Okay.
MCDP 10 defines maneuver as gaining a position of advantage over the enemy.
Right.
And that doesn't always mean simply advancing forward.
So it's not just about flanking or charging into battle.
Right, it's not always about physical movement either.
Okay, so there are other ways to maneuver.
Exactly. Maneuver can involve gaining an advantage in terms of time disrupting the enemy's plans by striking when they least expect it.
So outsmarting the enemy using deception or exploiting their weaknesses, those could all be considered maneuver.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about a Marine unit using stealth and camouflage to infiltrate behind enemy lines. That's maneuver in action.
Right.
Or imagine a unit using drones to create a diversionary attack while the main force advances from a different direction.
So it's about being unpredictable, keeping the enemy off balance.
That's a big part of it. And that's something the Marines are known for, that maneuver warfare philosophy.
Right. Always adapting, always being a step ahead.
Exactly.
Okay, that's maneuver now. To make maneuver truly effective, it needs to be paired with another key warfighting function, fires.
Yes, fires.
All right, let's talk firepower. What's the main takeaway here?
Fires is all about using weapon systems from rifles to artillery to aircraft to create a desired effect on a target.
Right.
And that effect isn't always about destruction.
Right.
Sometimes it's about suppressing enemy fire, obscuring their vision, or creating a diversion.
So it's about more than just unleashing overwhelming force.
Right, it's about precision coordination and choosing the right weapon for the right target at the right time.
So it's about having options and knowing when and how to use them.
Exactly. MCDP 1.0 stresses the importance of targeting and coordination. For example, artillery fire can be used to soften up enemy defenses before an infantry assault,
Right.
or airstrikes can be called in to disrupt enemy reinforcements.
So fires can really shape the battlefield, set the stage for decisive action.
That's the idea.
Okay, so we've covered command and control maneuver and fires 3 of the 7 warfighting functions. What's up next?
Let's talk about a function that's often behind the scenes, but absolutely essential for success.
Okay, intelligence.
Intelligence. All right, so this is about gathering information.
That's right. It's about gathering and analyzing information about the enemy, the terrain, weather conditions, anything that can impact the mission.
So intelligence is the eyes and ears of the operation.
You could say that it provides commanders with the information they need to make informed decisions.
Avoid walking into an ambush.
Exactly. Choose the best course of action and avoid potential threats.
It's like that old saying, know your enemy.
Right, and know yourself and know the terrain, and that's what intelligence is all about.
But
And remember, intelligence can come from many sources,
Huh?
from high-tech surveillance to boots-on-the-ground observations.
that's right. Every Marine can potentially contribute to the intelligence picture.
Interesting. So everyone's a sensor in a way.
In a way, yes.
Okay, what's next on our list of warfighting functions?
Let's talk about logistics.
Logistics, the lifeline of any military operation.
You got it. This function might not be glamorous,
Yeah,
but it is absolutely essential for keeping the Marines fighting.
yeah, there's that saying, amateurs talk strategy, professionals talk logistics.
That's a good one. What makes it so critical is that logistics is all about getting the right supplies to the right place at the right time.
Food, water, ammunition, fuel, medical supplies, everything.
Everything without a robust logistics system, even the best planned operations grind to a halt.
Yeah, no fuel, no fight.
Exactly. And MCDP 1.0 breaks down logistics into key components like transportation supply, maintenance, health services, each one critical for sustaining the force.
Wow. Managing all of that must be a massive undertaking.
It is a huge part of any military operation.
All right, so that's logistics. What's next?
Next, we have force protection.
Force protection. Okay, what does that entail?
Force protection is all about preserving the fighting power of the Marines by safeguarding them from harm.
Protecting the force.
That's right. It involves taking proactive steps to protect personnel, equipment, and facilities from enemy attack accidents, natural disasters.
So it's about being prepared, anticipating threats, and taking steps to mitigate risks.
Exactly. It's about thinking ahead, identifying vulnerabilities, and implementing measures to protect the force, whether that's through physical security, early warning systems, or even training Marines to recognize and avoid potential hazards.
So force protection really takes a holistic approach considering a wide range of potential threats.
Absolutely. And the final piece of the puzzle is information.
Information. Okay, this is a warfighting function that's become increasingly important in the modern battlefield.
Right.
So how does information fit into the overall picture?
Information is about leveraging information as both a weapon and a shield.
Okay, weapon and a shield, explain that.
It's about shaping perceptions, influencing decision-making, and protecting our own information while degrading the enemy's ability to do the same.
So it's about winning the information war.
That's one way to think about it. Information warfare can take many forms, from traditional psychological operations aimed at influencing enemy morale to more modern techniques like social media campaigns and cyber attacks.
It's amazing how the battle space has expanded beyond the physical realm.
It really has.
But how does this connect back to the individual Marine?
Well, it means understanding that every action, every piece of information shared can have an impact in the information environment.
So every Marine is a potential information warrior, in a sense.
You could say that it's about being a responsible consumer and disseminator of information, recognizing that even seemingly harmless actions online can have unintended consequences.
This highlights the importance of media literacy and critical thinking skills, even in a military context.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing propaganda, disinformation, and attempts to manipulate perceptions.
So it's not just about what you say. It's about what you share, what you like, what you retweet. All of that can have an impact.
Exactly.
This has been a fascinating overview of the 7 warfighting functions, but I know we've only scratched the surface.
You're right. We've laid the foundation, but now we need to start building on it.
Absolutely. So in the next segment, we'll delve deeper into each of these functions, exploring their nuances and how they play out in different types of operations.
We'll look at how they're applied in real-world scenarios, from large-scale conflicts to peacekeeping missions.
Just stay tuned, Marine. We're just getting started.
We'll be right back with more of our deep dive into MCDP 10.
Welcome back, Marine. We're diving back into MCDP 10, and in the last segment, we broke down those 7 warfighting functions, kind of like the Marine Corps operational DNA, right?
That's right, the essential building blocks of how they operate.
And we saw how they all work together like a finely tuned machine to achieve victory on the battlefield.
Yeah, that integration piece is critical.
But I'm curious, how do these functions play out in different types of conflicts?
I mean,
The Marines don't always face like a conventional enemy on a traditional battlefield, you know?
you're right, and MCDP 10 recognizes that it's not just about fighting a large-scale war against a uniformed enemy. It provides a framework for thinking about and approaching any type of conflict, from counterinsurgency to humanitarian assistance and everything in between.
So MCDP 10, it's adaptable. It's a toolkit that can be applied to a wide range of missions and challenges.
Exactly, and it emphasizes that the Marines need to be prepared to fight in any climate and place against any type of adversary.
Okay, I'm ready to explore this adaptability. Let's start with the scenario we've seen a lot of in recent years, counterinsurgency operations. So how do these traditional warfighting functions change when the enemy is often hidden among the population, and victory is about winning hearts and minds as much as it is about military objectives?
That's where things get really interesting. In a counterinsurgency environment, the warfighting functions are still relevant, but their application might look quite different.
Okay, so it's like using the same ingredients but adapting the recipe for a different dish.
Exactly, that's a great way to put it.
So can you give us a specific example of how this adaptation might work?
Absolutely. Let's take command and control in a conventional war. The commander might be focused on large-scale maneuvers directing troops in direct combat. But in a counterinsurgency, it's often more about building relationships, fostering trust with local communities, and coordinating efforts with a diverse range of actors, not just other military units, but also civilian government agencies, NGOs, and even tribal leaders.
So it's less about giving orders and more about building consensus, fostering collaboration, and winning the support of the local population.
Precisely, effective communication becomes even more crucial in this environment. The commander needs to be able to clearly articulate the mission's goals, not just to their troops, but also to the local population, explaining how those goals align with their needs and aspirations.
Right, it's about building legitimacy, showing that you're there to help, not just to occupy. Now, what about maneuver? How does that concept translate to a counterinsurgency, where the enemy is often blending in with civilians and avoiding direct confrontation?
Well, in a counterinsurgency maneuver becomes less about seizing terrain and more about establishing a persistent presence in key areas.
Okay, so it's not about conquering territory, it's about controlling it.
Right, it's about conducting patrols to deter insurgent activity, providing security for local communities, and demonstrating that the Marines are a reliable force for stability and order.
So it's about showing the people that you're there to help protect them from the insurgents and to create an environment where they can rebuild their lives.
You got it. It's about denying the insurgents safe haven and undermining their influence among the population.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's talk about fires, the use of weapons systems.
Mhm.
Obviously, this is a function that has to be used with extreme caution and restraint in a counterinsurgency.
Absolutely, because collateral damage, civilian casualties, can be incredibly counterproductive in this type of conflict. It can alienate the very people you're trying to win over and actually bolster support for the insurgency.
Right, it can backfire big time.
So in a counterinsurgency, fires might be more focused on precision strikes against high-value targets, insurgent leaders, or key facilities, and less on large-scale bombardments.
So it's about using firepower surgically, minimizing civilian casualties, and demonstrating that you're not there to harm innocent people.
Precisely.
Okay, now let's talk about intelligence. In a counterinsurgency, intelligence gathering takes on a whole new dimension. It's not just about locating enemy units. It's about understanding the complex social, political, and economic dynamics that fuel the insurgency.
You're right. It requires a much deeper understanding of the operating environment.
So what are some of the key elements of intelligence gathering in a counterinsurgency environment?
Well, it's about developing a deep understanding of the local culture, tribal affiliations, and power structures. It's about identifying who the key influencers are, who the insurgents rely on for support, and what grievances they're exploiting to recruit followers.
It sounds like human intelligence. Human. Building relationships and gathering information from local sources would be absolutely crucial in this type of conflict.
It's essential, and it requires Marines who are not only skilled warriors, but also culturally aware, sensitive to local customs, and able to communicate effectively with people from different backgrounds.
That makes sense. You need Marines who can build rapport with the local population.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's move on to logistics. In a counterinsurgency, logistics can be incredibly challenging, especially if you're operating in a remote or austere environment.
Right, you're dealing with difficult terrain, limited infrastructure, and often a hostile population.
So what are some of the unique considerations for logistics in a counterinsurgency?
Well, you still need to ensure your forces have the basic necessities: food, water, ammunition, fuel. But in a counterinsurgency, you might also be tasked with delivering humanitarian aid to local communities, supporting reconstruction efforts, or even helping to establish basic services like clean water and sanitation.
So logistics becomes almost like a tool of diplomacy, a way of demonstrating goodwill and building trust with the local population.
Exactly. It's about showing that you're not just there to fight, but also to help people rebuild their lives and create a more stable and prosperous future. It's about winning hearts and minds through concrete actions.
Right. Actions speak louder than words.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's logistics. Now, let's talk about force protection in a counterinsurgency environment. How does that change when the enemy is often hidden among the population and can strike at any time using unconventional tactics?
Force protection becomes even more challenging and multifaceted in a counterinsurgency because the threat is often diffuse and unpredictable. The enemy can blend in with civilians, launch surprise attacks using improvised explosive devices, IEDs, or infiltrate secure areas to conduct sabotage.
So it's not just about defending against conventional military attacks. It's about constant vigilance, awareness of your surroundings, and understanding the local patterns of life to identify potential threats.
Precisely. It might involve strengthening patrols, building good relationships with the local community, training Marines to detect and respond to IEDs, and taking steps to protect key infrastructure from attack or sabotage.
It sounds like force protection in a counterinsurgency requires a combination of traditional security measures and a deep understanding of the local environment and culture.
Exactly. You need to be able to adapt your security posture to the specific threats you're facing.
And finally, we come to information. This function takes on even greater importance in a counterinsurgency because it's about shaping perceptions, influencing opinions, and countering enemy propaganda.
That's right. The information environment in a counterinsurgency can be incredibly complex and contested, with multiple actors vying for influence and trying to control the narrative.
So how can the Marines effectively use information as a weapon and a shield in this type of conflict?
It's about understanding the information needs of the local population and tailoring your messages accordingly. It's about highlighting the positive impact of the government and security forces and countering the insurgents' propaganda with truthful and compelling narratives.
So it's about exposing the insurgents' brutality, highlighting their lies and broken promises, and contrasting that with the government's efforts to improve people's lives and create a more stable and prosperous future.
Exactly. It's about winning the battle for hearts and minds by providing accurate information, building trust and credibility, and undermining the insurgents' attempts to exploit grievances and manipulate public opinion.
This has been an incredibly insightful exploration of how MCDP 10's principles are applied in various real-world scenarios.
It shows how adaptable the warfighting functions are and how MCDP 10 provides a framework for thinking about and approaching a wide range of challenges.
Yeah, it's not just about fighting wars, it's about solving problems.
Exactly. MCDP 10 goes beyond specific tactics and procedures. It fosters a mindset, a way of approaching complex situations and finding solutions, whether you're facing a conventional enemy on a battlefield or working to stabilize a fragile nation.
It's a guide for thinking a way of analyzing situations and developing creative solutions.
Precisely, and it emphasizes that every Marine, regardless of their rank or MOS, has a role to play in achieving victory, whether it's defined as defeating an enemy force or winning the support of a local population.
That's a key takeaway. Everyone has a part to play.
And everyone needs to understand how their actions contribute to the mission.
Okay, so before we move on, I want to touch on another crucial aspect of MCDP 10, the importance of combined arms.
Right, combined arms is essential for success in modern warfare.
So what exactly does that mean in the context of MCDP 10?
Combined arms refers to the integrated and synchronized use of different military capabilities. Infantry armor, artillery air power, and now cyber to achieve a common objective. It's about leveraging the strengths of each element working together as a cohesive force to overwhelm the enemy.
Okay, so it's not just about the Marines fighting on their own. It's about working with other branches of the military.
It's about integrating all the tools at your disposal to achieve maximum combat power.
So it's like a football team with each player having a specific role, but working together to score touchdowns.
That's a great analogy in a combined arms operation. The infantry might be tasked with assaulting a key position, while the artillery provides supporting fire to suppress enemy defenses. Air power could be used to conduct airstrikes against enemy reinforcements, while cyber operations disrupt their communications or logistics networks.
So it's about creating a symphony of destruction.
Well, it's about using all your assets in a coordinated and synchronized manner to achieve a decisive victory.
And MCDP 1.0 emphasizes the importance of combined arms, not just within the Marine Corps itself, but also in joint operations with the other services, the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Space Force.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that no single service can do it all alone. Victory in modern warfare often requires a joint integrated approach with each service contributing its unique strengths.
So it's all about teamwork.
Teamwork, communication, and a shared understanding of the mission.
And that shared understanding comes from a solid grasp of MCDP 1.0.
That's right. It's a foundation for everything the Marine Corps does.
This has been an incredibly insightful exploration of how MCDP 1.0's principles are applied in various real-world scenarios.
It's about more than just fighting wars. It's about problem-solving, adapting, and overcoming any challenge that comes your way.
And it's about remembering that every Marine has a role to play in the success of the mission.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this segment, but there's still more to explore.
In the next segment, we'll delve into the enduring relevance of MCDP 1.0, focusing on its key takeaways for you, the individual Marine, regardless of your rank or specialty.
We'll discuss how you can apply these principles to your daily life, your training, and your career.
It's about taking ownership of your professional development and striving for excellence in everything you do.
So stay tuned, Doreen, because we're about to wrap up this deep dive with some practical advice and actionable insights that you can use to become a more effective and well-rounded Marine.
We'll be right back.
Welcome back, Marine. We're in the final stretch of our deep dive into MCDP 1.0. We've explored the 7 warfighting functions, how they adapt to different types of operations, and even touched on the importance of combined arms.
Lots of ground covered. But as we wrap this up, I want to shift focus to you, the individual Marine.
Right, because at the end of the day, MCDP 1.0 isn't just a theoretical document.
Right.
It's a guide for action, a tool to make you a more effective Marine, no matter your rank or MOS.
Exactly. So what does this all mean for you? How can you take these principles and apply them to your daily life, your training, your career?
Yeah, that's the question every Marine listening should be asking themselves right now. What are some key takeaways they can put into practice right now?
Well, firstly, remember that MCDP 1.0 isn't just for commanders or senior leaders.
Right.
It's for every Marine.
Every Marine from the newest recruit to the seasoned veteran.
That's right. Whether you're an infantryman on patrol, a logistician keeping supplies moving, or an intelligence analyst processing information, MCDP 1.0 has something valuable to offer.
It's about understanding your role in the bigger picture, seeing how your actions, no matter how small they may seem, contribute to the Marine Corps mission.
Exactly.
It's about cultivating a mindset of continuous learning, always striving to improve your skills, expand your knowledge, adapt to new challenges.
MCDP 1.0 emphasizes initiative, taking ownership of your responsibilities and finding solutions even when the situation is ambiguous or the orders are unclear.
Encourages Marines to be proactive problem solvers. Think outside the box, challenge assumptions, all while operating within the framework of the doctrine.
And of course, communication is key.
Yeah.
Being able to articulate your ideas clearly, listen effectively, and work collaboratively as part of a team is essential in any military operation.
These are skills that will serve you well, not just in the Marine Corps, but also in life beyond the service.
Absolutely. So here's our challenge to every Marine listening. Don't just read MCDP 1.0, study it. Wrestle with its ideas. Discuss it with your fellow Marines.
Ask yourself, how do these principles apply to my specific job? How can I use this knowledge to be a more effective Marine?
And most importantly, don't be afraid to ask questions. Challenge assumptions. Engage in thoughtful discussions with your NCOs and officers. That's how you truly internalize the doctrine and make it your own.
Because the more deeply you understand the why behind the actions, the more effective you'll be as a Marine, a leader, and ultimately a citizen.
As we conclude our deep dive, I want to leave you with a thought from MCDP 1.0 that perfectly encapsulates its essence. The Marine Corps' ability to adapt to change is essential to our survival as a fighting force.
Powerful words. What does that mean to you in today's rapidly changing world with its constantly evolving technologies, emerging threats, and new forms of warfare?
It means embracing change, challenging the status quo, and pushing the boundaries of what's possible. It means seeking out new knowledge, adapting existing tactics, and being prepared to fight and win in any environment against any foe.
And that responsibility, that challenge falls to each and every Marine.
That's the enduring legacy of MCDP 1.0. It empowers Marines to not just react to change, but to anticipate it, to drive it, and to shape the future of warfare.
So keep learning, keep adapting, keep striving for excellence. The future of the Marine Corps depends on it. Semper Fidelis, Marine, and keep diving deep.